Everyone believes that they are a feminist, in the same way that they believe themselves to not be racist, to not hold bias, to be intrinsically a good person. We hold ourselves in high regard and think that we are good because we hope to be. And to be good in the year 2022 is to be a supporter of oppressed groups and to believe that we are making changes to the world around us through our statements of support. But that is simply untrue. Just stating that you are a feminist does not make you one, in the same way that saying that you are a millionaire will not fill your account with money. In order for a label to apply to you, you must be what it describes. The label follows the action. It does not preclude it. It does not magically give your actions righteousness or make them beyond reproach. You must do feminist action to be feminist. You must understand and apply the theory in order to claim the word. And yet, so many people believe that they are feminists even while they work in opposition to women's liberation. No one wants to risk being disliked for their activism. The rise of social media has posited the idea that activism is meant to be easy and without effort or risk. See the rise of social justice warriors who consider posting a black square in their Instagram or adding a catchy slogan to their bio to be the extent of what is accepted of them. Part of this seems to stem from a desire to seem politically savvy rather than to actually examine and believe in the movements they hypothetically support. But I believe that a larger part of why such lackluster participants can charade as activists is because everyone seems to have forgotten that activism involves risk. Civil rights were won with hard-earned sweat and blood. Suffragettes were beaten in the streets for trying to attain voting rights. It was never as simple as simply holding a sign or stating your support. No oppressor will give up his place without being confronted and forced to do so. Refusing to confront the oppressing class, or to even name them, gives liberal feminism a lack of focus. How can you drive change when you refuse to name the problem? They can stop rape by not raping, and bring the sex industry to its knees by not paying for sex. Oppression doesn't just happen to women like bad weather. Men as a group systematically oppress and exploit women, and feminism is the political movement to challenge and change that. Finn McKay. Now, women are far more uncomfortable with being disliked than they are of their oppression. Women still fear the stereotype of being the preachy, ugly, hairy, lesbian man-hater, because to be her is to be shunned by society. In order to remain palatable, they therefore have to shun what society shuns about feminism. Their feminism must therefore be inclusive, above all else. Feminism was never meant to include everyone. Feminism is for women. That means gay women, disabled women, women of every race, color, and creed. It includes trans men who are biologically women. The only people that it does not include are men. And yet, men have been centered in this new wave of feminism. Take a look at the types of movements that succeed. The types of so-called feminist action that frequently receive media attention and create trends are those that simultaneously objectify women in the name of empowerment. Thus, the rise of fun feminism, or feminism light. This type of feminism is popular because it is palatable to a male audience. It does not require women to engage in the painful process of self-reflection integral to consciousness raising, and contains little, if any, political conceptualization of structural male dominance. Rather, the kind of social media campaigns that receive the most media attention often focus on a woman's individual right to objectify herself. Take a look at the most popular challenges of the modern feminist movements. They do not challenge male social dominance. Instead, young women are urged to remove boundaries in the name of empowerment, rebranding the sexual objectification of women as feminist action. Women become complacent with misogyny and patriarchal culture as we are manipulated to accept it. We delude ourselves to see it as empowering and to adjust to it. We believe that we are capable of choosing our subordination and are actively discouraged from challenging it. Any challenge to the status quo is willfully misinterpreted in a way to make criticism appear at odds of choice. When we oppose BDSM, they accuse us of shaming women for liking pain, when we're actually criticizing men for sexualizing and inflicting women's pain. When we oppose prostitution, they accuse us of shaming the prostituted women when we're actually criticizing the men buying and selling women's consent. It's their choice, liberal feminists say, and this simultaneously posits these choices as being irreproachable and made in a vacuum. This argument ignores the larger social construct we seek to dismantle, and responds that dismantling that construct would come at the expense of personal choice. The individual is worth more than the collective, and thus preserving the harmful paradigm becomes paramount to validating the individual. In doing so, choice feminism ends up defending the patriarchy. Another major reason for the rise of choice feminism and the lack of collectivist movement is that young people do not realize exactly how much they take for granted. After all, we have all grown up in a world where women can work, where marriage is a choice made for love. We have schools, colleges, and sports teams. We seemingly have it all, and so we have forgotten exactly why feminism is needed. In the 1960s, legally a woman couldn't open a bank account or get a credit card without signed permission from her father or husband, couldn't serve on a jury because it might inconvenience the family not to have the woman at home being her husband's helpmate, could not obtain any form of birth control without her husband's permission. You had to be married and your husband had to agree to postpone having children. Couldn't get an Ivy League education because Ivy League schools were men's colleges until the 1970s and 80s. When they did open their doors to women, it was agreed that women went there for their Mrs. degree. We couldn't experience equality in the workplace. Kennedy's Commission on the Status of Women produced a report in 1963 that revealed, among other things, that women earned 59 cents for every dollar that men earned, and were kept out of the more lucrative professions. We couldn't keep her job if she was pregnant. Until the Pregnancy Discrimination Act in 1978, women were regularly fired from their workplace for being pregnant. You couldn't refuse to have sex with her husband. The mid-1970s saw most states recognize marital rape, and in 1993 it became criminalized in all 50 states. But still, marital rape is still often treated differently to other forms of rape in some states even today. Women couldn't get a divorce with some degree of ease. Before the no-fault divorce law in 1969, spouses had to show the fault to the other party, such as adultery, and this could easily be overturned by recrimination. Women couldn't have an illegal abortion in most states, and now can't do so either. The Roe v. Wade case in 1973 protected a woman's right to abortion until viability. Women couldn't take legal action against workplace sexual harassment. According to The Week, the first time a court recognized office sexual harassment as grounds for legal action was in 1977. Women couldn't play college sports. Title IX of the Education Amendment protects people from discrimination based on sex in education programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. It wasn't until this statute that colleges had teams for women's sports at all. And finally, we couldn't even apply for men's jobs. The EEOC rules that sex-segregated help-wanted ads in newspapers were illegal, and this ruling is upheld in 1973 by the Supreme Court, which opened the doors for women to apply for higher-paying jobs that were previously only open to men. The feminist movement we have today is not feminism. It has been destroyed by liberalism. Liberalism has created a movement that is individualistic, whereas feminism at its heart is collective. Feminism is socially based and critical, whereas liberalism is naturalistic, attributing the product of women's oppression to women's natural sexuality, making it ours. Where feminism criticizes the ways in which women have been socially determined in an attempt to change that determination, liberalism is voluntaristic, meaning it acts like we have choices that we do not have. Where feminism is based on material reality, liberalism is based on some ideal realm in the head. And where feminism is relentlessly political about power and powerlessness, the best that can be mustered by this nouveau movement is a watered-down form of moralism. This is good, this is bad, and there is no analysis of power or powerlessness at all. So, no. If you participate in bimbofication, if you place the comfort and desires of men above your own, if you value your sexual and reproductive value to men over your own happiness and comfort, you are not a feminist. You are the problem. And this, dear viewers, is where we part. This video was mostly inspired by the fact that I've gotten, not a whole bunch, I know my channel's small, but I've gotten at least 4 or 5 comments of people going, "This is so mean of you to say that bimbofication is not feminist," and it's like, no, it's not. And I really think it's funny when people decide to argue that just because they chose it, it suddenly is beyond reproach. You can't criticize that choice. You can't see the systems that influence. It's just, if it's their choice, then it's their choice, and choice is good. And I think it's really interesting, especially how this compares to feminism in the East, because what we call radical feminism in the US and Canada is just feminism in India and China and Japan and Korea. What we call extremist is just normal feminism elsewhere because they haven't had the chance to reach the point of even suing someone for semen warfare, for example, in Korea. There was a case where a woman was literally fed semen against her will, like she did not know about it for months. And the most that she could do was sue for the cost of her cup, because the cup was ruined, because there was no law to say that sexual harassment of that nature was a crime. And when you compare the movements we have today, you compare our feminism, which says, yes, showing your breasts and wearing flimsy clothing and pretending to be stupid so that you can uphold some fashion trend, those are all beyond reproach. Those are your choices. There's nothing else there. Compare that to these other countries, which are finally fighting back against literally required plastic surgery in Korea for jobs. There's so much that's just taken for granted here, and it's very frustrating. How are we going to move forward if we can't even admit there's a problem? I don't know that we can, but I think the first step is to raise awareness, to have conversations, and to talk about it, which is why I try, until I get annoyed, to at least offer a conversation about topics like this with people who disagree with me. It's okay to disagree. We didn't all come to the same conclusion in the same time. Often, the ideal of realization, that's painful. You can't ever walk back the realization that we live in an oppressed world, we are an oppressed class, and that we are treated differently based on our sex. You can't ignore that, you can't unsee it, and it's impossible to pretend that you don't know it once you do. And I understand why some people may very much resist having to come to terms with that. So, like I said, this, dear viewers, is where we part, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.